Moving onwards, I don't see how my arguments of Thomas Cranmer were ridiculous. I simply pointed out that I think it's ridiculous he brings up Thomas Cranmer, and I find it even more ludicrous that we're told that the Novus Ordo is a Calvinistic mass. If anybody were to attend a Calvinist function, which I've attended many back when I was Protestant, depending on what Reformed faith you're a part of, there are no words of consecration that are said, usually none. The anonymous is not even viewed as necessary. I wonder if Peter Diamond has even studied this issue, because if he has, and if a Protestant were actually to hear this debate, they would find it as a ridiculous, and not only ridiculous, but a lightweight argument that really has no substance. A Calvinist mass. I wonder if he's read the Confessions of Faith and he understands what their consecration formula really is. I think it's a ridiculous and a lightweight argument. I will now surrender the rest of my time to Peter Diamond.
Okay. Well, in your last statement, you uttered a falsehood that is so egregious that it almost cries to heaven, that you said that the gospel accounts, more or less you said, the gospel accounts are valid forms of consecration, and this has been defined by the Church. That is completely untrue. You cannot cite one thing which states that. It's just the opposite, okay, because the Papal Magisterium says that the long form is necessary, and St. Thomas Aquinas specifically rejects that. You also made reference again to Mysterium Fidei. You said because the mystery of faith is not in Scripture, it's basically not part of the form. Well, you specifically contradict and are refuted by Pope Innocent III. You can find this in Denzinger 414. In his letter Cum Marthae Circa, November 29, 1202, he said, the mystery of faith is mentioned in the canon, since something is believed there other than what is perceived, and he makes reference to the body and blood of Christ, and he says that expression in the canon of the Mass is found among Jesus' words because it was said by the Lord. And he goes on, surely we find many things omitted from the words as well as from the deeds of the Lord by the evangelists, meaning the gospel writers, which the apostles are read to have supplied by word or to have expressed by deed. Therefore, we believe that the form of words, as they are found in the canon, the apostles received from Christ and their successors from them. So he directly contradicts your egregious falsehood that it's not part of the form because it's not in Scripture. He says, as a Catholic knows, that not everything is in Scripture, which you still obviously haven't come to realize, still being bogged down by Protestant ideas. You made reference to St. Thomas Aquinas and asked if I agree with him on Our Lady's conception. Obviously not. In fact, I've done videos on this topic. No, but that's a completely illogical argument, as I already pointed out, that in this case, St. Thomas Aquinas is perfectly in line with all of the other teachings of the Church, all of the other authorities on this matter. There's nothing of greater weight to contradict him, and so he's deserving of great consideration normally when he speaks, but especially when everything is backing him up on this point. So that's just a ridiculous argument. You said that you didn't call into question what I was saying about Second Clement. No, you mocked it. And then when you realized that you didn't know what you were talking about, you retracted from it. You made reference to it's ridiculous to say the new Mass is designed to be Calvinistic. Well, as we quote on our video, Jean Guiton said the intention of Paul VI with regard to what is commonly called the Mass was to reform the Catholic liturgy in such a way that it should almost coincide with the Protestant liturgy. There was with Paul VI an ecumenical intention to remove, or at least to correct, or at least to relax what was too Catholic in the traditional sense in the Mass, and I repeat, to get the Catholic Mass closer to the Calvinist Mass. Okay, now furthermore, 6 Protestants were involved in the creation of the Novus Ordo. Many people have seen that. The picture's on our website. It's covered in our video. And so obviously it was a heretical revolutionary Mass, as any honest assessment of it will show. That's why it gutted so many things. No pope would have dreamed of doing that, and that's why the only one who would do it was an obvious infiltrator, Paul VI, who also esteemed false religions. And it is relevant that the man who brought in all of these revolutionary changes was an utter apostate, as I proved in the last debate, who esteemed all religions. My time's up. Your turn.
Okay. You want me to go, or are you going to need a break?
No, you can go ahead.
All right. Touching upon a number of topics, I think he still is misunderstanding what I'm saying about the gospel accounts, which are formally defined by the church. And as such, I can realize that he doesn't, I'm not sure if he really doesn't understand the argument or if he's really trying to avoid it, such as he avoided the argument of all the other scriptural texts, Exodus, Mark, the parallelism, and the patristic citations I brought up. I think in order to try and save face, he thinks he's going to, I suppose, win the argument in the patristic area because he thinks I use Second Clement. I guess. I'm not even going to touch upon that anymore. It's silly. But anyhow, the magisterium has never said that the long form is needed. And it is interesting that he keeps on harping on that, yet he really hasn't proved anything. Anyway, in regards to mystery of faith, I never once said that the mystery of faith should be removed, or that, and in fact I've read the exact quotation he used, you can find in his book actually, and I don't disagree with it at all. The one thing that I do disagree with is the fact that he thinks since mystery of faith is in a different area in the new Mass, simply in a different section, that this invalidates it. In fact, Peter Diamond doesn't even say that it invalidates it. In his audio set, he says that it casts grave doubt on the Novus Ordo, and I disagree with that. Anyhow, moving on to the Calvinist arguments, I think where Peter Diamond operates best is when he's ripping and pasting arguments he gets from other books, and he doesn't work best when he's outside of doing that. And dealing with Calvinism, he doesn't really have any idea what he's talking about. He probably has not read any of their Confession of Faiths. He doesn't even have an idea that Calvinist, I guess, service, if you want to call it, I wouldn't even call it Mass or consecration, doesn't use real wine the majority of the times, and usually they have crackers. In fact, Protestants had nothing to say in the new Mass formulations, and if you want to say that simply because there were Protestants invited to preside over, to watch or whatever, it doesn't mean that they had a say in what was going to happen or what was going to come out in the formulation. We could use the same ridiculous argument since Protestants were invited to Trent, but it's a fallacious argument. But I was saying before that I was going to continue hammering home certain things that Peter Diamond doesn't understand, and I don't do it to be mean or to try and put lightweight arguments on the table. I'm really hoping that Peter Diamond is able to engage with some of the arguments I've brought forth. And as I said, if he can topple any of them, Peter Diamond has won the debate. I still don't understand where he's dealt with the fact that Matthew 26, which does use form and Luke 22:19 and 1 Corinthians 11:23 are all formally defined by the Church, by the Council of Trent. In fact, maybe Peter Diamond will have a chance to pop open his Denziger, and he can look through it and find just where we read this. It was officially decreed that these word texts show the reality of the presence of Christ in the Eucharist. So it is interesting that we're told that the Novus Ordo, since it lacks form listen to the logic. The logical connect for Peter Diamond is that the Novus Ordo lacks form ergo invalid. Yet Luke 22:19 and 1 Corinthians 11:23, as well as John 6:51, which were formally defined texts of the Church, lack it as well. Yet these texts are formally defined by the Church at Trent. Yet they lack the formula. Yet the so-called Vatican II Church is heretical, and the Novus Ordo is invalid. But it is ridiculous that I'm pointing this out and that I'm beating this down. Luke 22:19 and 1 Corinthians 11:24 are formally defined as texts that show the reality of holy orders. But it's ridiculous. I'm still a Protestant, and I don't know what I'm talking about, because I am simply pointing out that Trent shows that the text evinces a real sacrifice in these verses, a real Eucharist, lacking the formula for many.
Okay, my turn. I'm going to start now.
Go ahead.
Yeah, a lot to cover. You said that the Church has never taught that the long form is necessary, and I think I need to quote the Council of Florence quickly. It identifies the form of words which the Holy Roman Church, relying on the teaching and authority of the blessed apostles Peter and Paul, has always been wont to use in the consecration. For this is my body, for this is the chalice of my blood, of the new and eternal testament, the mystery of faith, which shall be shed for you and for many unto the remission of sins. And the same council said that you must have the form to consecrate or to effect the sacrament. So, completely contradicts your bold falsehood. And it's actually a lie to continually repeat this in the face of the evidence. You tried to compare the Protestants being involved in the Novus Ordo to Protestants being invited to Trent. This is a further example example of your illogic. The Protestants were invited to Trent to hear the scriptural debates so that they could see how carefully crafted the dogmatic definitions were and how they were so rooted in Scripture. Okay, that was the goal, to convert them. The creation of the Novus Ordo was not involving theological debates and dogmatic decrees. They were brought there to give input on how to Protestantize the liturgy. There's no analogy there whatsoever.